Team up, dream up. For girls, finding your team is game-changing, which is why Metrobank are championing the growth of women's and girls' cricket across England and Wales. Their mission is to create a brighter future for girls through cricket in partnership with the ECB. Hello and welcome to the Wisden Women's Cricket Weekly podcast. The England-India series kicks off this Saturday, the first serious test of the new regime. How are the two teams shaping up? We'll get into that, as well as picking a combined England-India T20 side. And also we have a chat with one of the most exciting young English batters in the country. I'm Yas Rana, and with me today are Katya Witney and Ben Gardner. But first up, Lauren Winfield-Hill. 5 T20Is against India kick off at Trent Bridge on Saturday. Lauren, the West Indies series was fairly one-sided. This should be a sterner test of where England are at, but if you look at the India squad, it's a pretty lopsided squad. Star-studded batters, but an extremely inexperienced bowling attack. Could be quite a high-scoring series.
Yeah, I think so. I think all things considered as well, especially when you look at the surfaces at the minute, it's generally high-scoring across the country. So, I think it's going to be a battle of the batters, to be honest. I think India's top six are arguably as good as any in the world. You know, you throw into, really, I think actually, you know, pound for pound in terms of where England are at the minute, and they've had a reshuffle, they've had players in and out. I think India's top six is better than England's. But England are a much more well-rounded team. I think I feel like it used to be a case of their seam attack not being quite as potent as what it used to be since like Goswami and Shikhar Pandey. But it seems to be their whole bowling attack now there's only one sort of figurehead that remains to get picked and to hold it all together, and that's Dipti Sharma. It always used to be a thing where I thought, the seam attack wasn't great since those two sort of weren't opening the bowling together. But the spin with Radha Yadav, with Poonam Yadav, you always still felt like their spin attack was decent. But at the minute, there's not even a collective of like regular spinners who are world class. So I do think I think it'll be a bat off. I think India are going to have to get some runs, because I think, that bowling attack is poor. I saw, I was commentating on the series out there in Australia, and, there was some different faces then that's in this squad now. So they're even less experienced than what was playing against Australia. And that was their downfall, their bowling attack and probably in the field as well. I think the game's shifted a lot, and it's obviously been a hot topic in this country with the women's side. But I think those two areas is where India will really struggle. So they'll need to fill their boots with runs, and that batting lineup is dangerous. Like, in terms of the power that they possess. And the destruction that they can do. I think the other thing is as well, they've got a nice blend of left and right-handers, which is quite difficult, especially in T20s, where, you can't, it's not, in 50-over cricket, you can build a story, like you can get your plans right and they can evolve, and the left and right hand, possesses a different sort of challenge. In T20, it's on your feet, you got to think fast, you got to get that right straight away. So I do think that's something that they can use to their advantage. But yeah, I'm a bit concerned about that India bowling attack.
Just on their batting lineup, I'm just really excited to watch them in action, to be honest. If you look at the numbers over the last year, Smriti Mandhana has 7 50s from her last 13 innings in T20I cricket. Shafali Verma's got a good record, averaging nearly 40. Rodriguez, again, pushing 40. Harmanpreet actually averages 70 in the last year in T20I cricket. And then Rishi Ghosh has a strike rate of 177. So really power-packed batting lineup. As you say, that seam attack in particular is incredibly inexperienced. And actually, when you're going through the players who they're bringing in, they're not even players who necessarily play that much in the WPL. So they're almost unproven at that level too. Before we start recording, you mentioned a name that isn't involved anymore. Shikha Pandey hasn't played for India for a couple of years, still playing in the WPL, doing really well for Delhi year after year. I feel like it's a bit baffling that she's not involved anymore. I know that she's in her mid-30s, but compared to the players who are playing at the moment, it's a slightly different level.
Oh, it honestly, it blows my mind. And obviously, having played with Shikha at Brisbane Heat, like, yeah, she's closer to the end than the start, but the skills that she has, the knowledge, her game awareness, she swings a new ball. She takes wickets up top. She bowls Yorkers. She bowls back of the hand. She can bowl bumpers. And the other thing is she can absolutely club a few down the order. And it blows my mind. I think Renuka Singh Thakur is a really, she's a good opening bowler. She swings it, but I don't think she comes back at the death nearly as well as what Shikha Pandey does, and she certainly doesn't offer with the bat like Shikha does. So yeah, it's such an interesting selection how she is, falling through the net every time. But I just think India could do a lot worse than going back to Shikha Pandey and just having that, you need a spearhead seamer. You need somebody that's experienced to help these youngsters around them as well. Whereas when it's all young, it's sort of like, well, who's driving this? Who can you actually turn to? If you're Harmanpreet Kaur, if you've got basically the only senior bowler that you have in your ranks is Dipti Sharma. And Radhi Yadav's pretty experienced, but she's someone that's battled a lot recently with, she almost lost control on the ball and has battled a little bit the last few years. So she's not necessarily someone that you're going to turn to in high pressure situations. And if you only have one of them, it's pretty tough going as a captain because Dipti can only bowl four. So yeah, I just think there's got to be some reason that we don't know of as to why Shikha Pandey does not get picked, because she's still a absolutely world-class bowler, and I think just the fact that she's actually closer to the end than the stars, it would be even more of a tick for me if I was a selector or a coach, because I think that's exactly what they need. And she's still playing. She's in CPL, she plays WPL, she played WBBL. It's not like she's somebody who's just playing domestic cricket. She's getting experience in franchise cricket all around the world, which, as we've spoken about before, is arguably harder than a lot of international cricket. So she's certainly good enough to be playing. There's obviously some reason why she's not.
Well, if the two warm-up games at Beckenham are anything to go by, I know that Beckenham is Run Fest Central at the moment. I think we could be in for an extremely high-scoring series. So if you haven't got a ticket and you live near any of the grounds, get in. It should be a cracker. Cool. That's it for today. Cheers, Lauren. See you next time.
Thanks, mate.
So the big news from an England point of view is that Sophie Ecclestone is in and Sarah Glenn is out of the T20 squad. Katya, first on Ecclestone, she's in, but it wasn't necessarily a foregone conclusion that she would be in the same way it had been for the last half a decade.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken a lot about Lindsay Smith and what that means for Ecclestone's place in the side. I mean, it's the prime example of you miss a series and someone comes in and takes your spot. But we've also said before in this pod, there is absolutely a world where Lindsay Smith and Sophie Ecclestone play in the same T20I and ODI side. And I think that's what we'll see probably on Saturday, that both Lindsay Smith and Sophie Ecclestone will play. But it was a bit of a mad couple of weeks in the build-up to Ecclestone being included in the squad for her. Basically, in the space of 2 weeks, she played for Lancashire in the T20 Blast on June 4th, and I think took 2 wickets in 4 balls to end the game. Then a couple of days later, it was announced that because of a quad problem, she wouldn't be playing in Lancashire's next game in the Blast, which is different from the original knee injury that she was suffering with at the beginning of the summer. And then on June 7th, it was announced that she would be taking a break from domestic cricket to prioritise her well-being and also to manage that quad injury, although it was specified at that time that she would still be available for selection for the India series. And then 5 days later, she was selected in the England squad for India in both England squads. Oh, sorry, no, we've only had one yet in the England squad for India. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind couple of weeks, but I think that is a line drawn under the entire affair. It's been a bit of a kind of weird couple of months for Eccleston, as we've talked about quite a lot. But from the wording from Charlotte Edwards in the statement, it does feel a bit like she wants to draw a bit of a line under this. Eccleston is fit and able to play in the side, and a side with Sophie Eccleston in it is better than a side without Sophie Eccleston in it. So she has to find a way to get Eccleston in, draw a line under the whole kind of affair, under whatever's gone on with Eccleston in England over the last few months, including in Australia with that media stuff, and just move on. I can also imagine it's been a bit of a difficult time for Eccleston.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, her rise to like the best bowler in the world was very, very quick and very, very linear, and it stayed at the same level throughout. And then almost kind of suddenly, starting with the T20 World Cup last year, when there was those comments from Alex Hartley about the fitness that then bled into the Australia series when Eccleston ignored it, and suddenly she's seen her stock fall very, very quickly, and that must be quite jarring for someone who's only ever known their stock being quite high. So I can see it being quite a difficult couple of months, and I can understand why she would want to take a break to prioritise her well-being. But as I said, a side with Eccleston in his side is a better side than one without, and it is good news that she is back in an England squad regardless.
Another big call to leave out Sarah Glenn, whose T20 record overall was amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is amazing overall. I guess I was trying to look through the numbers to see if there were holes in it, because sometimes, especially actually as a wrist spinner, you can, if players can't pick you, if they're just not good at a decent quality wrist spin, you can kind of rack up really good numbers against some of the weaker teams. And her record against Australia in particular is not great. She goes at almost 9s against them. But overall, the record is, as you say, it's astonishing. And it's funny, because obviously we talked about Lynn Smith in the context of Eccleston, but she's actually the casualty really of Smith coming in. They've decided that, obviously Dean, what she offers with the bat, the good head she's got on her shoulders, the off spin turning it that way as well. That Smith and Eccleston is the way they want to go. I guess it's also almost they've got two who turn it away from the right hander and one who turn it in now, don't they? In the left arm spinners, and then the off spinner.
It doesn't change, does it?
Well, that's the leg spin.
Well, they're both spinning it away from.
But that's what I mean. That's why it would be. You might think, we've got two left arm spinners, but it's no, you've got two away spinners and one in spinner, and so that also explains a bit why actually if you're almost picking two from those three, it's rather than having to think, we need one spinner of each different type. That's what they've thought. But it is, as you know, for a bowler who has been, ranked really high in the world as well as Eccleston, I guess it's just another example of, that Edwards is going to see things differently. She's going to take bold calls, and this is absolutely one of them. Yeah,
just a reminder of Glenn's T20I record: 89 wickets at 16, economy rate of 6.05, runs and over. Only 4 women have taken more T20I wickets for England than Glenn: Eccleston, the 2 Siva Brunts, and Anya Shrubsole. And I guess, just that record against Australia, it's also her recent record against Australia. So her overall record against Australia is sort of fine, average in the high 20s, economy rate of nearly 9. But if you take out the 2 games that were played 5 years ago, it's a lot worse. I think she took like 5 for about 40 from those 2 games combined. And I suppose as well, if you're making a direct comparison to Lindsay Smith, Lindsay Smith's a really good fielder. Sarah Glenn, one of the weaker fielders in the England setup. So that's another big call made early. Katya, we're going to do a combined England T20 I11 as a good way to sort of, I suppose, match the 2 sides up and see where we are ahead of a series. Obviously a different prospect compared to what England played against West Indies. If you're going to pick a combined England-India T20 side, who do you have in it?
I guess, so specify we're doing it for this current series, not overall. So I think one of the most difficult decisions to make is actually the opening partnership. So you've got England's openers, you've got Danny Wyatt-Hodge, and at the minute, Sophia Dunkley. And then you've got India's openers, who are Shafali Verma for this series, although she hasn't played T20Is for India for a little bit. And you've got Smriti Mandhana. Smriti Mandhana, that's a no-brainer. She comes straight in. So then you're picking one of the other 3. And I would go with Danny Wyatt-Hodge based on current form. I know Sophia Dunkley was really, really good in the T20 series against the West Indies, but you do have to take into account West Indies bowling attack. I don't want to keep being too mean on the West Indies because they have just beaten South Africa in the T20I series. But you do have to take that into account. And also Danny Wyatt-Hodge has been in incredible blast form I watched her at the Oval a couple of weeks ago, and she was just absolutely incredible. And I think based on what she's done over a very, very long period of time, you have to keep Danny Whitehodge in there over the other two. Although I can absolutely see if you were going to put Shafali Verma in there, why you would put Shafali Verma in there instead. So those are the two openers. Don't know if anyone's got any disagreement.
No, I don't. But it is interesting, I think, again, because it's right now, but you've also got actually one player who's, towards the end of her career, but having sort of had this that's gone on for a long time, but the late blooming side of things, but that's been extended versus someone who, I still think we will look back on as one of, the all-time greats. And the question is, but has had a bit of an up and down time over the past little bit, over the past, 6 to 8 months or so. But I can easily see Verma having just like a massive series, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, it's definitely her who's in there.
Maybe we should look back at this 11 at the end of the series.
No, that's what we should do. That's what we do. That's exactly what we're doing on the weekly. Basically, it's an exercise to make us look like mugs. It's pick a combined 11 at the start of the tour and then the end of the tour and see how wrong we were, or how right we were. How do you pick a 3, 4, 5, 6? Lots of powerful options.
I think 3 and 4. Well, you disagreed on the 4, but I think 3 is obviously very easy. You put Nat Sciver-Brunt in at 3, best all-rounder in the world, best all-rounder arguably ever. There'll be some disagreement over that, but Nat Sciver-Brunt goes in at 3, and then I'm putting Harmanpreet Kaur in at 5. She's averaging, I think, about 47 this year in T20I cricket. I could understand the concerns about strike rate, but I think overall you put Harmanpreet in at Kaur based on what she can do and the weight that she's got behind her, and then you drop Rodriguez down to 5, so that would be my top 5. That means there's also no room for Sharma and Dipti Sharma in the top 5 or Risha Ghosh, but they would come in at 6 and 7 in my 11. So Ghosh over Jones in T20Is. So that would be how I would pick a 3, 4, 5, and 6. But I'm sure you're gonna differ.
Ben?
No, I think I'd be okay with that. Again, you've got the core one is interesting, but I think it's just it's pedigree, which obviously you're picking team for right now. But I think that does also matter. You don't want to pick someone who's just on a hot streak. So I think if I were picking a side, it would still be her. And I'm a massive Jemima Rodriguez fan, so very happy to see her in, basically.
Are you having Kaur or Nat Sciver-Brunt as captain?
That's a great question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. You know what? Let's go with Kaur, I think.
Yeah.
She's got a good record in the last year, Harmanpreet, and also a very good record in the WPL as well. So she's still, even though she's 36, still very much at the top of the game. And I think the bowling attack's really interesting because, to be honest, I don't know a lot about the Indian bowlers, and it's a very fresh looking squad they've brought over compared to what you're used to with India. Always described before a world tournament as one of the favourites, and it's a side you can normally reel off, but that's not the case this time round, and that's reflected in the combined 11.
Yeah, so India's bowling attack is quite depleted for this series. Renuka Singh Thakur, Pooja Vastraka and Titus Sandhu, so those are 3 really good seam bowlers for India's 3 premier quicks, are not in the squad through injury. It's not quite clear if it's through injury, but I would assume it's through injury given that they all missed the last tri-series that India played through injury. So that means they've got 4 uncapped players in their squad, 2 of them seamers. So you've got Kranti Good and Salaya Satgar of seamers, and then you've also got 2 uncapped left arm spinners in Shri Charani and Suchi Upadhyay. So you can't put pretty much any of India's bowling attack apart from potentially, well, I would pick Dipti Sharma obviously in this 11. So the spin attack's brilliant. Dipti Sharma, Sophie Eccleston and Charlie Dean don't have a big enough sample size, I think, yet for Lindsay Smith to put her in over one of those 3. So the spin attack's good. And then I would say Lauren Bell is probably the only standout female pacer from both of the squads. England have got Lauren Filer and Izzy Wong as well. But if you're thinking of like what a combined India-England 11 or best 11 would look like, I think you've got to put one kind of wild card seamer as a weak spot at number 11. You've also got Arundhati Reddy from India who would make a claim to that as well. But if those 3 bowlers were fit, Reddy I don't think would get in the side, to be completely honest. So that last spot in the 11 is a weak spot.
Yeah, and just on that India squad, that I think the one play might not mention there is they do have Radha Yadav in that squad who has played a lot of T20I cricket, but obviously in this 11, she's not getting close to Eccleston. So yeah,
it's quite interesting that when you're picking a combined 11, you're picking someone who might not be either side's first 11 when everyone's fit, which is a good, I suppose, indication of where this particular India touring side is at. Moving on, Ben, what's been going on in the Blast?
Yeah, a fair bit actually. It's been so Surrey have rolled on. They're now 7 wins from 8, but they were pushed really, really close by Hampshire. So they were 35 for 3, chasing 156. Danny White-Hodge in our 11 makes 65. Actually, key is the 6 wicket stand between Paige Schofield and Alice Davidson-Richards. So they had 50 and 6 and a bit overs to take them home off the last ball of the game. That finishing role is really tough. So I think when you see 2 players coming in like a hard to sort of figure out even what you have to do situation, let alone do it, when players do that, it was something that England will sort of, take notice and be like, okay, we're glad someone's ticked that box, basically. 2 other really good games. Essex pushed Warwickshire close. Lauren actually played in that game. She made 30. So it's made 150. The Bears chased down 2 wickets, 1 ball to spare. And interestingly, they promoted Izzy Wong to number 3. And she went well, hitting 30 odd off 25. I don't know if it was a specialist plan to combat Esme McGregor, who's like, by a distance, the leading wicketaker in the competition. She's got 18. The next best has got 12. And she actually took 2 wickets in that over where Wong came in. So I don't know if it's that, but anyway, it worked. So the star was actually Charis Pavley, came in with the Bears 40 for 4, about lost partners throughout, but scored 60 out of 4 to take him home. And then the other good game was Somerset, who were winless, almost chased 170 against Hampshire, but lost by 5 runs, which would have been their first win of the season. And just so Surrey are sort of running away with the group. And actually those games, although they were all close, you almost wish that all of them had gone the other way to sort of squash the table up a little bit. But for Surrey, one player I think is interesting to pick out is Rihanna McDonald-Gay, who is, something close to the strange thing you can be in the women's game, which is a test specialist for England. But she is having a good season. She's got 9 wickets, going at 6.51, which is low for a bowler who's also taking that many wickets. That's one to keep an eye on, I think.
I just think we should do these roundups with Lauren here. By the way, Lauren.
Yeah.
Also in action this week have been the England A team and also the England development side, which is actually closer to the A team than the A team is, if that makes sense. So the A team beat New Zealand A by 6 runs at Derby. There were runs for Grace Scrivens. She scored 86 off 122. But the standout really with the bat was Freya Kemp, 57 or 40. Is not someone we actually talked about a lot this summer. I suppose in the Alice Capsey bracket of someone who the previous regime rated really highly and identified early, but hasn't played a lot of professional cricket. So seeing her do well for the A team is a really good sign. Jodie Grucock scored 67 off 63-2. And in the chase of 298, Izzy Gaze, a World Cup winner with New Zealand, hit 81 off 59, but New Zealand fell 6 runs short. The Durham pair of Phoebe Turner and Grace Thompson took 5 wickets between them. Turner, we talked about before, she's a wicket-taking machine in the 50 over stuff. And has been for a while for the Diamonds before she moves to Durham. Thompson, less so. She's just turned 18, very tall seamer who gets the ball to swing away from the right-hander. She looks really good. And then the England development game, well, they've actually played 2 games against India at Beckenham. Well, you've covered a few games at Beckenham. Par score 350, and that's pretty much what England got, and only just won. Very strong England side. Bouchier with an unbeaten 100 off 84 balls. Emma Lamb with 90 odd. And in the T20 today, England defended 194 by just 6 runs. Bryony Smith leading the way with a rapid 62. One of the players involved for England A this week is someone we've talked about on the pod for a while, actually, Davina Perrin, who is still only 18 years old. She's played in the 100 and is increasingly one of the most consistent run scorers in the country, and she's already very much on England's radar. Katya caught up with her early in the week. Here is that chat.
Joining us this week on the show, we have Davina Perrin. So good to have you, Davina. You're currently involved with the England Women's A squad, who are playing New Zealand. You got off to a winning start this week and a bit of a nail-biter.
Yes, we did. Was a bit of a close one in the end, wasn't it? And it was a great game, all in all, to be fair. Pretty decent standard of cricket. A young squad as well, which is always really promising to see. A lot of probably more familiar faces for me. So that's always really nice. It was almost like an under-19s reunion for some of us, which again, really promising for the setup that so many of us have come through that as well.
But you've also got players like Freya Kemp and Mahika Gore who have played a decent amount for the England senior side. And as you mentioned, players like yourself who've played one or two A series before. So it seems like a really good mix of experience, but still young players.
Yeah, exactly. Good mix of experience, good and youth, but within that immense amounts of talent, which is really good to see.
You were a late call up to the England A Tour of Australia a few months ago. That must have been pretty hectic.
Yeah, it was. It was all pretty go, go, go. I got the phone call and it was, let's try sort your visa out as soon as possible and get you on the soonest flight. And I was like, okay, let's go. Wasn't out there for very long, maybe like 2 weeks. So I just got used to the jet lag and then was on my way back and had to get used to the sleeping schedule back home.
Yeah, 2 weeks in Australia, that sounds like a pretty brutal sleep schedule. What was the environment like for you on that tour? Obviously, we weren't long out from the senior side, having lost the Ashes and all of the fallout that came from that, and the feeling that there were quite a few players with a point to prove or looking for selection on that series. Did you find it a bit of a step up from what you played in the England under-19 stuff before?
Yeah, it was definitely a step up from the under-19s. There were a lot of really talented players in that group, and a lot of hard-working players. And the overall standard of cricket was much better. The levels of consistency and execution were obviously much higher. And it was really good to sort of see okay, this is the next step up. This is where I want to be, and this is where I need to be to take my game forward. So it was a great experience all in all.
And how did you find playing in Australia?
Oh, it was great. I think most people dream of getting to play in Oz. So that was a great experience in itself. I've been told the wickets were meant to be quite bouncy and much different from back home, but I didn't really feel much of a difference. They were just class wickets, to be fair. It was going on to that nice.
Do you feel like bouncy wickets would suit your style of batting?
I don't know. I think I get quite low in my stance. So I feel like when the ball keeps a bit lower, so when we played in Sri Lanka, I think that suited my style of batting a bit more. I have a lower middle on my bat too. And I like a bit of like to take the opportunity to use width and go over extra. And when it's a bit lower, when it sits a bit lower, it just sort of sits onto the bat a bit nicely. It can flat bat as well.
And you mentioned Sri Lanka, you were playing in the under-19 World Cup out there. You had an incredible competition earlier this year, playing in your second under-19 World Cup. You played in that amazing World Cup in South Africa a couple of years ago now. You were the second highest run scorer in the competition in Sri Lanka, including a 45 in the semi-final against India. And since then, you've now obviously been involved with England A. You kind of moved right through the stepping orders of this kind of new England setup. Have you used kind of the under-19 to leapfrog onto that next level of performance?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think, that's the whole point of the process and the structure, that you can go through each stage and it provides a really great form of integration. You get to slowly, you drip fed into the system. You get to meet the coaches. You become a bit more familiar with how the environment works, what's expected of you, how you can go about your business within that space, because it can be different in different spaces, training wise, playing wise, sort of what coaches are looking for. So I think definitely helped me to sort of leapfrog into that space with the A's.
And what we've heard from a lot of older players is the difficulties they've had in terms of making that jump to the next level when it is such a big jump, and perhaps not having had that amount of professional cricket played before making that jump. You're obviously someone who is now going through that new, very clear pathway system that's created. Do you feel like you've been prepared for every kind of next step you've taken in this system?
Yeah, I'd say so in many ways. I think the domestic structures provided a lot of that preparation. I think it's been really exciting and really promising seeing how high the standard already is and how much it's improved within such a short space of time. It almost shows, when you invest a bit of money into a sector of the sport, what it can do, and you invest a bit of money into the women's game, how much it can grow. And I think the sky's the limit at the minute. So it's really, really great to see. So I think that structure has been really, really vital and important. Being in a professional setup all year round, being immersed in that has been so crucial for almost knowing what's needed of me, knowing how to consistently perform, how to show up every day and sort of do the right things. I think that's been the real differentiator. Obviously, the under-19s has been great, but the standard within the domestic game and the consistency within that has enabled almost like that integration through a lot more.
I think most people watching this interview will know of you as the 15-year-old who got picked up in the 100 a few years ago. That's still a record, I think, for the youngest player bought in the competition. You didn't play 100 games for a couple of years when you initially bought and then played for Northern Superchargers last year. What was that like as a teenager, 15 years old, suddenly getting all of that attention?
I think, fortunately, I've got a good support network around me. I've got a fair few siblings, I've got 5 siblings, and I've got my parents who do a good job of keeping my feet on the ground and keeping me humble, whether that's taking the mick out of me and roasting me, or just like pep talks here and there. So I think it almost felt like just another stepping stone, you know? And it's like, don't put it on a pedestal, it's just another stepping stone kind of thing, was what I tried to tell myself. Keep your feet on the ground, and whatever's going on around me will happen. It's natural, it's part of the process, but I've got to focus on where I'm at, kind of thing.
Kind of boring stuff, and I think it happens for a lot of women's professional cricketers, but how do you balance being a fully paid up professional cricketer and taking your GCSEs?
Yeah, weirdly enough, I ended up taking most of my GCSEs a year early, which I think kind of played it into my favour, because it was sort of dispersed a bit more, so that I could balance the cricket side of things a bit better. And I'd love to say I've had a like really good technique for balancing it, but I didn't. I kind of just did the work that was in front of me, sat my exams when I needed to. There was one time where the PCA had to help me out and we had a game down in Canterbury, a T20 match, and the morning of the game I had a maths GCSE to sit, and you can't quite miss that, can you? So they put me at a school to sit my exam in Canterbury, and then I went and played like 30 minutes later. So it was the balance is kind of there, was kind of there. There's parts of it that are easier than some, and it's just sort of taking it in your stride, really, isn't it?
That's insane. Do you remember what went better, the exam or the cricket you were playing that day?
I think the cricket probably went better for me that day. It typically does.
Going a little bit further back, you mentioned you have 5 siblings. Do any of them play cricket?
One used to play cricket. My older sister, my little brother's 9. He's getting into it. He's watched me play a few times, and he thought, oh, you know what, I'll give it a whack. And that's what he does, to be fair. A typical young lad who loves to turn up, bowl as quick as he can, and just try and hit it as hard as he can. But yeah, my older sister started playing before I did, and she's the reason I play cricket now. I sat on the side and I watched her train a bit. And the coach who was there at the time is Chris Guest, who's the under-19s head coach. And my dad was like, oh, like, Guesty, can she join in? And he was like, yeah, go on. I was about 6 at the time. I was tiny, and there were all these like, because it was like 9+ at the time. So there were all these lads, and they just gave me a plastic bat, and I fell in love with the game from there. Probably helped that I had the competitive sibling rivalry with my sister. She was always better than me. She was bigger than me. She was stronger than me. But that didn't stop me wanting to be better than her. So yeah.
Because your dad's quite a good cricketer as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was all right. He was a handy lefty. I always say I wish I could be left-handed. I think it's quite back left-handed, and I'd sit and watch the likes of Brian Lara on YouTube, and I'd be like, oh, if I could only just bat that way.
That's quite heartening to hear someone your age watching cricket videos of Brian Lara on YouTube. I was going to ask you who your cricket role models were growing up, because I would think you're now playing against quite a lot of them, but maybe not Brian Lara.
That era of West Indies cricket, your likes of your Sir Viv Richards, I definitely try and channel a bit of Sir Viv when I'm batting. And, you know, like Michael Holden, I used to love watching him bowl. That's like peak cricket for me in my mind. If only I could have seen it live.
I wanted to touch a little bit on identity, and the West Indies thing I think is a good segue in. When you were signed by Central Sparks in 2022, you were only the 3rd black female professional cricketer in the country. What did that mean at the time for you? Because we've said it, but you were only 15 at the time. That's quite a lot for a 15-year-old to take on board.
Yeah, I guess. I think for me, I think especially with the age that came with it, it was more excitement. It's more about paving the way and being one of the first of few to enter a space, and hopefully, like, just by purely just being there, because at the end of the day you can't be what you can't see. That would open doors in itself, and that would pave a way for so many young black girls and black boys, of course, looking to get into cricket. And hopefully, like, we'll see more people like me playing professional cricket.
How do you view your place in the game right now in inspiring the next generation of black cricketers coming through?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously being present, being on the pitch as much as possible. But moments like this, taking moments such as this and using the space and the platform that I've been allowed to have here to discuss those topics and raise awareness on the topic. And it may not have to be a great conversation, but ensuring that people are still aware that there's so much more to do, and there's so much growth for the sport in that area that can take place. And we'd love to see more people from black and ethnic minority groups, not just taking up cricket, but having opportunities to play it professionally too.
When you were coming through and when you were playing like village cricket and coming through into the Central Spark setup, how did it affect you that there weren't many people who you could look up to who looked like you in the professional game?
Yeah, I mean, diversity is something that was quite the rarity within cricket, and it's not something that goes unnoticed from my perspective. There are elements of searching to find my identity within the sport, searching for a familiar face, because it can bring you a lot of comfort, knowing that there are people around you who can relate to you, or people who have been there and done that who can relate to you. That's why your likes of like your Ebony Rainford Brents are just so influential to myself. But I think it was just, it was in some ways that it was a bit difficult, not having anyone around me who shared that same identity as myself, or people who would necessarily understand certain aspects of me and what made me who I am. But also within that, I've encountered so many great environments. I've been part of so many positive spaces who have welcomed me with open arms. And for that, I'm so grateful.
And aside from the role models aspect of it, how can we encourage particularly more black girls to take up cricket?
Oh, what a great question. I think it's just reinforcing the message that cricket's for everyone. It's sport at the end of the day. It's something that we do, because we enjoy it. Like, I picked up a cricket bat for the first time because I enjoy it and because I love the sport. And that's all you need. All you need is love for the game and passion, and the rest will come, kind of thing.
And you mentioned Ebony Rainford Brent. You've done some work for the ACE programme, which mentors elite black cricketers in England. Could you tell us a little bit about what the work you've done has been?
Well, the role that ACE has played, particularly for myself and within my cricketing journey, was it just provided a comfortable environment where I could sort of stand and be around people who are almost like myself, people who have shared experiences with me. It filled a gap that I didn't even realise was missing within my cricketing journey and my growth within the game. And I think it was really, really important for me, and it really did make the difference.
Just to finish up on some cricketing stuff for the next year, big next 12 months for you potentially. You've got the 100 coming up, I'm sure more stuff with England A potentially. Where do you see yourself in the next 12 months, or where would you like to be in 12 months' time with your cricket?
Oh gosh. I'm quite like, be where my feet are, within my mindset. And every game's another game to grow, every training session's another opportunity to get better. And the way I see it, if I keep doing that, I'll become as good as I can be, as quick as I can be, kind of thing. And I think if I just keep taking it in my stride, keep searching to play the highest level of cricket possible, then I'm doing the right thing.
That is everything for today's show. Cheers, Kathy. Cheers, Ben. Cheers for listening. See you next time.